Okay, now we're going to learn factorization, and we'll start with factorization by the highest common factor. So let's start with an expression 4x squared minus 2xy. So to factorize this by taking out the highest common factor, we need to understand what is the highest common factor first. The highest common factor of an expression is another expression that you can divide your expression with, so that at the end there are no common factors between the terms of that expression anymore. So how do we get such a factor, or the highest common factor of an expression? Well, it's simple. There are two things we look at. One, we look at the numbers that we have, the coefficients that we have, and if there's a constant there, we'll also include it as the coefficients. So we find the highest common factor for those numbers. Okay. Then once we are done, we find we look at the variables. And for each variable, we'll take the one with the smallest power if that variable is common. In other words, if that variable is in all the terms. If a variable is not in all the terms, we will not include it in the highest common factor. And if there are expressions in brackets, or some of the factors are in brackets, and we see that that expression in bracket is in all the terms, then we will also include it in the highest common factor. So if each of your factors have different variables, but they are common, you take the one with the smallest power and include it in the highest common factor. So let's see. First, the highest common factor for 2 and 4 is 2. Now, for the variables, which variables are common? So we see x is common, so that means we will include x in the highest common factor. We see y is not common, we will not include it. Now for the x's, we look at the powers. Here the power is, the exponent is 2, here the exponent is 1. So that means we include this one. So that means we have 2x. This is the smallest power because it's to the exponent 1, while this is to the exponent 2. So our highest common factor is 2x. Let's take another example. Let's say we have x squared minus 5x. In this case, the numbers are 1 and negative 5. So our highest common factor for the numbers will be 1, because that will be the biggest number that goes into 1 and 5. So for the variables, x is common. It's in all the terms. So we'll include x. And since the smallest power of x is 1, we'll just have x. And so our highest common factor is x. Let's take a last example for the highest common factor. We're going to have what? Let's say we have 3x squared yz minus 6x z x cubed z squared minus 12 x squared y squared and z cubed. Now the highest common factor in this case will be what? We will have HCF. We'll start with the numbers that are there. The highest common factor for 3, 6, and 12, that is the biggest number that goes into 3, 6, and 12, will be 3. 3 can go in here, it can go in here, and in here. There's no other bigger number that can go into all of them and not leave a remainder. So the highest common factor for the coefficients here is 3. And then for the variables here, we have what? X, y, z. But we see x is in all the terms, y is not here. Z is in all the terms. So we'll only include x and z in our highest common factor. Will not include y because it is not in all the terms. In other words, it's not common. Now for the x, we see the smallest power. So we see x squared, x cubed, x squared. The smallest power is 2. So we have 3x squared. And then for the z, we have z to the power 1 to the power 2 to the power 3. So that means the smallest one is z to the power 1. So our highest common factor then is 3x squared z. Before we continue, let me just add one last one. Let's say we have 2x squared minus 7 minus, let's say, 18x minus minus 4. So the highest common factor in this case will be what? We'll start with the numbers. So we have 2, negative 18, and negative 4. So what is the highest common factor? The biggest number that goes into all the 3 numbers. It is 2. 2 goes in here, it goes in there, it goes there. It's the biggest one. The smallest one is 1. Then let's go to the variables. We only have x. And we see x is here, it's not there. So x is not common. So we won't include it. Then our highest common factor is 2. Now once you have found the highest common factor, how do you factorize by taking out the highest common factor? And the steps are simple. What do? First, you write the highest common factor, then you open a bracket. And inside the bracket, you divide the original expression by the highest common factor, term by term. So we'll have 4x squared divided by 2x, 2x minus 2xy divided by 2x. And this gives us what? 2x. This goes in here twice. X, 1x here will minus 1x there. 2 goes into 2 ones. X goes into x ones. We're left with y. So that means here we're left with 2x minus y. Okay. Now, if you want to check if your factorization is correct, you check. If I was to multiply 2x and 2x, what would I get? 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is x squared. Right. So that becomes what? 4x squared then. 2x times negative y is negative 2xy. So that's correct. Let's go to the second one. To factorize the second one, we already have the highest common factor. So you write the highest common factor, you open a bracket. Then in the bracket, you divide each term of the expression by the highest common factor that you have. Now, x, the 1x here will minus the 1x there. The x here divides the x. And so your answer then becomes x into, we're left with x here, we're left with 5 there. X into x minus 5. Then let's go to the third one. On the third one, we have the highest common factor is 3x squared z. Always write your z with the line here so that, or strike through, so that it is not confused with 2. So let's see. When you have this, you're going to have 3x squared yz divided by 3x squared z, which is your highest common factor. Minus 6x cubed z squared divided by 3x squared z. Then the last term is negative 12x squared y squared z squared divided by 3x squared z. Now let's start with the first one. 3 into 3 goes once. X squared into x squared goes once. Z, 1z goes into 1z once. We're left only with y here. 3 into 6 goes twice. X squared here will minus 2x's in the top. Z will minus 1z there. Then 3 goes into 12 4 times. X squared goes into x squared once. Z will minus 1z at the top. So that means that our answer then is 3x squared z. Here we're left with what? Y. And then on the second one, we're left with 2 minus 2. If we minus 2 from the 3x's at the top, we're left with 1x. And then we minus 1z from the top, we're left with 1z. And then minus 4. Here x squared is gone. Y squared remains. And then z, we minus 1z from it, so we're left with that expression. So that is our answer there. Then let's go to the last one. Once again, you write the highest common factor and you open a bracket. And in the bracket, you divide each term of the expression by the highest common factor. And so this becomes what? This becomes 2 goes into 2 once, 2 into 18 goes 9 times, 2 into 4 goes twice. So we're left with 2 into x squared minus 9x minus 2. And that is how you take out the highest common factor. You first build your highest common factor by finding the highest common factor of the coefficients. And then for the variables or any expressions in brackets that are in all the terms, you take the smallest power and include it in the highest common factor. Then to factorize, you write your highest common factor and then open a bracket. And in that bracket, after that bracket, you write the expression, the original expression you have, and divide each term of it by that highest common factor you got. Then from there, you simplify by using laws of exponents. Then you are done. To check if your answer is correct, you expand the factorization that you have and see if it gives you the original expression. If it doesn't, it means you did not factorize correctly. If it does give you the original expression, it means you have factorized correctly. And that is how we factorize, by finding the highest common factor and taking it out. Thank you.